Hi guys, it's Carrie here from Artist Strong, and you are watching Feedback Friday. Feedback Friday is a weekly show at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, which you can either watch and join me live, or you can watch the replay either here on Facebook or over on YouTube. And it's an opportunity for artists like you to build your skill and develop your voice, because I give you feedback on your art website, your social media postings, anything you're looking for feedback on. I'm here to help and offer you some new perspective to help you make better decisions for your art. So I hope, I hope that you'll share your work with me like everyone has been in the community. And think too that even if your work isn't up here today, for example, you can still benefit and learn from the things that other people are working on, and it can inform your own artistic decision making. So hopefully everything's working. I am using a new software, so we'll see how it goes. But I am excited and happy to have you all here. So thank you for trusting me with your art. I'm going to switch the screen now so that I can dig into the artwork we have to look at today. Hi, StreamYard. Thanks for your help here, but I don't want me on the screen. I think it's distracting to the tutorial that I'm doing. I'm so sorry, guys, for those of you watching live that I'm having this issue. Maybe I won't be using this software in the future, but here, bear with me, and I'll jump back into the feedback that we're trying to give to Rena. So here's the latest version of my Cloudscape. I'm sort of happy with it. I think I'm missing something. I changed the shape and added more shadow, but something is off. So what I was trying to tell you earlier when my sound was not working is that I really think she's done some nice work making some changes already to this piece. So she already in the Facebook group asked for some feedback, and she didn't have a bunch of light sources showing yet. So we're going to kind of highlight and note those as well. Hold on. So that being said, some of the strengths that I see in this work is she sees that the light source is coming from above, right? So you have highlights of the clouds that are coming from above. And if that's happening, that means that everything underneath would have a shadow on it. So I'm really glad that she kind of thought about that and really studied it. I will note that there's one cloud piece that seems to be missing a shadow, and that is this one right here. It doesn't have to be as dark as down here for sure, but it's very light compared to the shadows that are immediately next to it. So I do think some kind of shadow right here would really be useful for this piece. I love her texture and use of color in this. I think it's really well done. Something in terms of composition, I think she should think about. I really am glad she has some bigger chunks of kind of cloud coming off the edge here. It helps draw our eye this way. But in general, the cloud is very, very central. It's kind of in the very middle of the painting. And so it doesn't really have our eyes move anywhere else. So if we want our eyes to be able to travel further, I don't know if she wants to have kind of a piece sticking out here maybe. That's kind of symmetrical in some ways, or have this one kind of show a little bit more strongly. But that's kind of the one thing I'm curious about in terms of the composition, because there's the brush strokes are very rich and textured, so it creates a sense of movement. So I don't feel like it's this super still day. I do feel like there's maybe some kind of breeze going there, and yet the cloud feels very still and stationary. So that's something she can think about. If she really wants that stillness to show, well, then maybe she should think about having a glaze over the sky that's like very soft and smooth, so it helps create even more of a feeling of stillness. That could be one strategy, but personally, I love the texture she has in this piece. So I think those are kind of the two key areas I'm seeing in terms of something for her to think about in terms of decision making for her artwork. And I want to remind all of you that when you make your art and you get feedback from people like myself, ultimately you're the final decision maker. The feedback I'm offering is just another perspective to help you see your work with slightly different eyes so that you can make informed decisions. So let's get to our next artwork. Well, if my mouse will agree with me. Okay, Carmen. Carmen has this piece here. She says, the girl's still unfinished. It's a good time for feedback. What do you think of the little white dots on the drapes? Thanks. So what do you guys think? One wonderful thing about having this kind of conversation with you weekly is that you can also contribute and add feedback and contribute your own ideas and perspective to someone's work. I don't mind having dots on the curtain per se, but I am curious about why that's the only place that has those dots. Everything else is kind of this smooth brush stroke, and it's a very consistent kind of brush stroke across the whole surface, and then you only have dots in that area. And so I'm kind of curious, is it like a pattern that's on the drapes? And if it is, then it'd be interesting, why are they not kind of showing all over the drape itself? Or does it have some way to kind of create meaning for you? And if so, then I'm not sure if that's I don't know what that could mean. So that's something Carmen can think about, is how does that make her feel? And what's her aim with those white dots, since that's the thing she was concerned about. Looking at her color scheme, I think it's very rich and beautiful. She wanted to be more abstract with this portrait. It definitely has a feeling of abstraction, and yet I really like how the figure's placed, and I love this part of the painting. I love having this little kind of bird sitting and perching on her knees. There's so much going on in this piece that's quite nice. The composition's really strong, really good use of kind of rule of thirds. So if you put a hash tag across the top, right, you can kind of see key parts of the composition and how they line up. So yeah, Carmen, I think the dots are up to you. I find them slightly, like, they draw my attention, in part because you mentioned them, I'm sure, but they're also white, so they're kind of the highest contrast in this painting. And they, again, are the only mark like that on the surface. So if you're going to keep them and you want to, I think it'd be great to kind of mix things up. Hey, Marianne, I am glad you could join us today. Can you hear me okay? I've had some sound issues, but I'm using a new software, and actually StreamYard's been very helpful. Thank you, on the show to make sure you guys can hear me now. I had some tech issues in the beginning. I'll cut that out in the YouTube version of the video if you guys want, or you can kind of scroll ahead when you watch the replay. Okay, so Carmen, you are all set, my dear. Next on our list, we have Elsie Gray. Elsie had the piece like this and has it looking here as it is, but she actually changed it, so I have both screens. Oh, do I want the feedback banner on the whole time? Maybe not. Let's hide that for now. Good question. Thank you. Okay, that'll help you guys see the work better too. So this first piece, she said it's large. It's her first large piece. It's 4 feet by 2 feet, and it's supposed to be whatever she wanted. It could have a figure in it, maybe. She enjoyed working on it and loved the colors and looseness of it, but I guess she feels like it's unfinished. So the first thing I want to share is, because it's photographed in a dark space, it's actually hard for me to know where the right side starts and stops. So I'm not sure how much of a quality feedback I can offer, because I'm not really sure where the whole painting fits. That being said, she did share another image with us, and so it makes it easier. It's on a kind of a white wall background, so it's easier to see. And here she's like, maybe I made it worse, I don't know. And someone else in the community said that maybe there was some way she could incorporate the figure into the background more, because right now she kind of looks pasted on top. And I agree. I think the figure is quite interesting. She's become the sole focus of the painting for me. The rest feels like it's a background, and that she's the focus. So let's go to her work here so that we can take a peek. Again, nice use of rule of thirds. Also, the direction of the brush marks all lead kind of down and a little bit on a diagonal, so it leads to this figure, and she feels like she's on the same diagonal. And I think that's quite nice. It creates this feeling of kind of dynamic movement. A really simple way to try to help place her in the space is to actually make her standing somewhere. Like, what if this darkened area actually had some kind of edge to it? And even it could be, the whole ground has, it's just straight across ground, or I see kind of like cliff edges because of the light or the water. I could also see this being a waterfall kind of peeking through. And I do know that the intention was to keep it kind of maybe more ambiguous or abstract. But if you want her placed in the space, the easiest way to do that is to create some kind of line where she's standing. And again, you could have that line kind of peek out in and out. You don't have to just draw it straight across, but you could even have it so that there's just kind of this one spot here where you can see a hint of the ground for her to be standing on. The other thing you could do is, if her light source is really strong and the light's really coming down strongly like this, it is really dark here, but if you did have some kind of I'm wondering how you could add some kind of ground shadow so that she seems placed on the ground, so that, again, it would help her feel placed in the space. Something to note, too, is we have really strong shadows under her neck. So then underneath her arms, there would be a similar amount of shadow because of the strong contrast that's visible. I really like her figure. And again, I don't think the intention here is to be super realistic in terms of form. So like, I like her feel. I really like her face and the angle of the face. And I feel like she's kind of waiting for like water or wind to come down on her. And so I really like that we feel like we're capturing this moment of her having a moment to herself. And so, yeah, I wanted to share that that's kind of my read of this piece as well, so that might help Elsie determine what she wants to do next with the work. I could also see, again, like I said, these kind of almost look like little pieces of cliff. So you could actually paint it so that it is kind of cliff face, and then that would give a sense of kind of dimension to the front part, and still let this be ambiguous in the background. But I think you can see, even just with my sketch, how creating kind of that cliff edge gives a feeling that she's standing on something within the painting. So I think that could be really helpful. Again, if any of you watching this have ideas, please feel free to add them. And a lot of the artists have already posted them inside the Facebook group too, so that's a great place to go. It's called Becoming Artist Strong if you wish to contribute ideas. So thank you, Elsie, for your work. Okay, we're doing okay today. I might actually get a few more in than I thought today, which is exciting because a lot of you offered me opportunities to give you feedback today. So Elizabeth shared this drawing. She actually didn't ask for feedback on it. She just put it on the post where I said, I need artwork to give you feedback on for today. So I'm assuming she wants some kind of feedback. I really like the kind of boxed in nature of the piece. So, it has a box, it has a clear kind of frame to it. I do find it kind of interesting that there's like one space that's just all white in the drawing when everything else has some level of shadow and shading and value added, except for, of course, around the object. So my eye is constantly brought to that space because it's as clear and white of the paper, right? It's not had any marks added to it. So that is a primary focal point for my eyes when I look at this piece. I really like the tonality in this work. The use of shading is quite nicely done. There's some really nice different stages and values of tone, but also the blending is quite nice. So there's this like softness, definitely very Escher reminiscent, and very kind of fun then and playful and otherworldly because of that. So, yeah, I think my concern is if you want kind of some more empty white spaces to play with the idea of space in the plane, then I almost wish that there was one or two more somewhere else in the drawing as well, so that it kind of felt like it was. There's this kind of rule about composition where you don't kind of just put something in once necessarily unless you really want it to be your primary focus in your artwork. And so also there's this odd rule composition number. So if you're not going to put in, you don't really want 2 items, you'd want 3. And so that's just some of the compositional considerations that I make when I make my own art, and some of the rules of composition that I've read about. And if you're interested in that, I actually have a post called the 7 Steps to a Stronger Composition over on my Artist Strong blog. So you can go to artiststrong.com and go to the blog section where it says build your skill, and you'll be able to find that post. Thanks, Elizabeth, for sharing your work. I do love, again, that her use of value is quite nice. And it is confusing to play with the three-dimensional world in this way and really see lights and darks and be accurate in placing shadows. So it's really fun to see this. And it's a really good exercise for those of you who want to improve your value drawings as well. Tony is another artist of ours, and she has, I think, discovered, if not rediscovered, an interest in collage. And she's concerned here that the table edge is maybe too strong of a color. So I actually have this one over on our, here we go, on my Photoshop, excuse me. Oh, if I can get this to agree with me or not. Here we go. So I don't know. So one reason the color is strong here is because it contrasts with the vase, right? So purple and yellow are complementary colors on the color wheel, and that means they're opposite each other. And it also means that they create the strongest feeling of visual contrast when they're placed next to each other. So by having the purple vase and the yellow table, we're playing with color, and that makes both of them pop more. So it is, the table is very eye-catching. I don't know that that's a bad thing per se, but let's also look at it in black and white. I'm kind of curious to see what the steps and gradation of values are. So the value is the same between the vase and the edge of the table. But the whole background itself is really dark. It is one consistently dark value all the way across. So that makes me actually wonder, what if instead of changing the color of this, what if you made it almost like stripes? So you could have like stripes of yellow so that it felt like it was the table, just kind of reinforcing the shape of the table a bit more. Or you had blocked in kind of one more bit of yellow kind of somewhere. Just to help, again, reinforce that yellow and that playing with planes that you are playing with here, having the table kind of up a bit. I don't know that the yellow bothers me. I just want more color kind of down in here. I also could see too I wonder, what about also, you could even hint some of the yellow bits into some of your leaves somehow, and that could create a feeling of incorporation into the work. That could also help it so that the yellow doesn't stand out too strongly, because it is a big focal point. I agree, it does catch our eye. So I think those are some ways to help it kind of soften a bit, but also still create some visual interest for the artwork. I really love the different edges of the papers and how some are ripped and cut and have different kind of corners and bits. I think that's really fun. Something to think about too with this composition is everything's kind of really snug. So things are lining up right at the edge. And remember, that's something called creating a tangent. And tangents are something that can distract our eyes. So this one's better because the leaf kind of totally comes off there. And I like down here, the negative space is quite interesting. So up top, I am seeing kind of, we're getting full up and it's like we were running out of room. What if you just let them kind of come off the edge of the frame a bit and you ended up cropping them to fill the space, but let them go off the edge? I think that some of these bigger leaves in this composition would feel more open up top if we kind of let that open up a bit. Beautiful. And I really can't wait to see it finished. Okay. So I think I have time for one more artist today. So I am going to grab that folder real quick for you guys. So don't mind my screen as it goes a little wonky on you, so that I can look at one more artwork. So I think we'll look at Mel's here. Oops. It's not exactly what I meant to do, but we'll work with it. Okay. So Mel didn't give me any specific questions in terms of her feedback. She just wanted feedback. So the first thing let's do with this looks like it might be an acrylic painting, some kind of water-based media. Let's look at our lights and darks here. Oh, it's not going to let me yet. I have to fix the image here. Now we're sorted. Okay, so let's look at black and white in this image. Okay, so here we can see we've got kind of a nice strong dark tone here. You've got some lighter areas kind of right along the horizon line, but then everything else is kind of the same kind of gray here. So we've got one, like maybe two different steps of gray. So that's something for her to think about is, does she want more variety in the steps of her values? I think that this actually is quite nice. So the ground is really dark, and then you have kind of this lovely gray, and then this softer kind of white gray. We don't have anything that seems to be purely white either. And I think if you have really dark darks, having strong highlights as well can create a more dynamic kind of feeling in the image. Composition, she's using rule of thirds here. You do have hashtag, you could place a hashtag over the image and objects would kind of fall within the frame of where those hashtags, the lines intersect of a hashtag. Something that I am curious about is if it's supposed to be like this young girl, I believe, is blowing bubbles and they're kind of floating all over. The bubbles seem to be pretty even in terms of how they're laid out. I mean, there's some that are a little closer and further away. But like over here, these marks feel, oops, my pen's being funny. These all feel kind of the same size. They're all the same size. And there might be some distance between each other, but some of them start to feel a little more pattern-like. There's kind of an equal distance between them all. So I think that can create a sense of orderliness, or like it's a pattern rather than there's a movement happening. So that could be something to look at, is the concentration and arrangement of some of these bubbles. And I think the same could be said for kind of the flowers in the ground, especially with the yellow. It feels pretty evenly dispersed around the space. And so that could be another way to add some variety to the story a bit and kind of help our eyes move through this space. Because we want all of the space, our positive and negative space, to have visual interest for our eyes to travel through and explore. Something else I would consider is, and she did use atmospheric perspective here for the sky. So the sky that's closest to us is the richest in color. And as it gets closer and closer to the horizon line, it becomes more gray. And we're seeing that here. But we don't see that with the grass at all. So we see it in the sky, but we don't see it in the ground. And so we don't have any sense of distance for this part of the painting that we do with the top half. So I think that could be another very simple change, is to keep the darker, brighter, the darker kind of richer green here, and then let it become more gray slowly as the sky has, to reach and kind of meet and soften in color here. Now, these are all feedback ideas that come from me looking at this like she wants to kind of have a physical sense of place, and that she doesn't want it necessarily super abstract, and she really wants to use light source and things like that. If Mel wants it to be more abstracted, well, then I'd say really embrace the abstraction and have washes of color and areas that are blocked in, and don't like go all the way, like I feel like there's something in here right now that it could go in either direction, and I'm not sure which way she wants for herself. So I think that's something for her to think about. So thank you guys for your patience today. If I didn't get to your work this week, I have 4 or 5 of you for next week for sure, and I will get to your art then. Let me change the screen back so that you can see my face. Here we go. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. Thanks for your patience as I learn how to use new tech to try to make this experience a little better for you. Hopefully next week will be more smooth. But thank you again for being here and for trusting me with your art. I hope this gives you ideas for your own art. And for those of you who trusted me with your work, thank you very much. I love seeing, and as does everyone else, your finished work. So if you add to a piece and you finish it, post it in the Facebook group or email it to me at Carrie@artiststrong.com so that I can share your finished work in a future Feedback Friday. And I want to make sure you guys know too, before we run, that Feedback Friday is actually a taste of the support and community that you can experience inside my community called The Circle. It's a 6-month mastermind community experience for artists to come together and share resources, ideas, have critique and feedback, and be lifted up together to really achieve the individual personal goals we have for our art. And if that sounds like something you want to learn more about, then make sure that you use the sign up link that I'll put up just after this goes off air. I'll put it below the video here so that you can learn more about the program. And just to be sure, if you are watching live or you're thinking about it and watch this replay relatively soon after I have released it, understand that the early bird offer for The Circle closes Sunday at midnight. So if you want last year's pricing, this is the only time you'll have access to that opportunity. And if you have any questions about the program or whether you are a good fit for it, you can also email me. I want to make sure that the right people find what they need for their art. So thank you again for being here, guys, and I hope to see you in a future Feedback Friday. Have a really good day.